link, and the meeting has now begun recording. Julie, could we please call for said and apologies?
Thanks, Provost, and good morning, members. Provost Claire Leach.
Here.
Councillor Stephen Canning.
Present, thanks, Julie.
Councillor Ellen Friel.
I'm here, Julie, thanks.
Councillor John McFadden. Deputy Provost John McGee.
Yep.
Councillor Caroline Barton.
Here.
Councillor Elaine Cowan.
Here.
Councillor David Richardson.
Present, Julie.
Councillor James Adams. Councillor Ian Linton.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas Reid.
Yeah.
Councillor Jane Sangster.
Here, Julie, thank you.
I have an apology from Councillor Graham Barton. Councillor Graham Boyd.
Thanks, Julie.
An apology from Councillor Barry Douglas. Councillor Neil Ingram.
Yeah, thanks, Julie.
Councillor Peter Maben.
Good morning, present.
Thank you. Councillor Claire Maitland.
Here.
Councillor Jim Todd.
Here.
Councillor Beverly Clark.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Sally Cogley.
Here, thank you.
Councillor Kevin McGregor.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Linda Maben.
Here, thanks, Julie.
Councillor William Lennox.
Morning, here.
Councillor Alison Simmons.
Here.
Councillor Billy Crawford.
Apologies, Julie.
Thank you. Councillor June Kyle.
Present.
Councillor Jim McMahon.
Yeah, Julie, thanks.
Councillor Neil Watts.
Morning, Julie. I'm here.
Thank you. I have an apology from Councillor Drew Filson. Councillor Jennifer Hogg.
I'm here, thank you.
And Councillor James Kyle. Thanks, members.
Thank you, Julie. So probably, members, if you would just indulge me, just to go through some Provost remarks. It's been a really busy time recently and there's some great things happening in our communities. Firstly, it was All Ability Sports Day, the AAA, on the 18th of June. Learning Disability Awareness Week for the 16th to the 22nd of June. And the theme this year was Do You See Me? I proudly support this important awareness event every year and always go along to as many events as I can to show my support. And this one being no exception, I had an excellent afternoon at the All Ability Sports Day. This was held by the Learning Disability Partnership and it was a super fun event where senior school pupils and adults with a disability across the entire East Ayrshire can come and participate and try a variety of sporting events such as All Ability bikes, badminton, football, martial arts and archery. I really enjoyed playing some sports and I was so chuffed to play my first game of badminton, and thanks to Lindsay Nolan for the Things Today Club in Cumnock for teaching me proper form that apparently was rubbish. Multicultural event at the Ayrshire College on the 21st of June. It was a Pan-Ayrshire multicultural event held at the Ayrshire College. It was a wonderful event and it was held to celebrate 40 years of the Scottish Refugee Council's invaluable work. There was a wide range of partners and community members present and everyone joined together to celebrate groups and individuals' achievements. This event was aimed to strengthen the collective efforts to support equality, inclusion and community cohesion across Ayrshire. It was great representation for different communities with lots of activities such as wall climbing, selection of different foods to try and loads of information stalls for local organisations. And of course there was a famous Ayrshire rock choir there singing. It was smashing to meet so many people and it was really nice to bump into a wee girl called Mare who is a young refugee girl who is the primary age of Cumnock. If members were present, they would remember her really thought-provoking and moving piece of writing that captures her own journey as a refugee. And it was really nice to meet her. Apparently we're besties, so that is super cute. So a very happy anniversary to the Scottish Refugee Council turning 40. The Clean Green Education Awards at St Joseph's Academy on the 25th of June. This was for schools across East Ayrshire to be given awards that recognise the creativity and achievements of our young people driving behavioural change in our schools and across our local communities. It was great to see the different ideas that schools had to promote positive change and hearing the ideas many young people had to decorate their home food waste caddies. My favourite was Bingo Baggins. So as a Lord of the Rings fan, I really appreciated that. Well done to all schools achieving their Clean Green Silver, Bronze or Gold awards and attaining their eco-friendly school flags. and the Mr Windy Awards that were presented to those participating in the Power Down initiatives, which aims to build a strong community of energy saving champions across East Ayrshire centres, schools, home and communities. So well done to every East Ayrshire school that's involved in that. The First Edition Festival, which was held in Kilmarnock for the 19th to the 27th of July. It was an absolute honour and privilege to have been appointed this year's chieftain for the First Edition Festival. This is a week-long annual festival celebrating Burns and Scottish culture. It was in the first publication of the Burns poetry, first issued and printed by Kilmarnock printer John Wilson in 1768. It's a celebration of the town's important role in launching Burns' career and a celebration of Scottish culture as it is today. The First Edition Festival held a vast array of events across many venues in Kilmarnock, and a lot of which were free to attend, and I especially enjoyed all the music offering and presenting a certificate to who the public voted the best haggis in Ayrshire, which was W.W. Wales. It was a fantastic week, driven and supported by some incredible Burnsian, and I look forward to encourage as many people as possible to attend the multiple events in the gala next year. Playday at the K Park in the 6th of August. I went along to East Ayrshire's Playday in the K Park, and it was a huge success. It's always brilliant to see people turning out from across Ayrshire and beyond. There were lots of free activities, performances, stalls run by charity and organisations, not to mention loads of different but very nice things to eat. The Playday runs annually as part of the UK's National Day for Play, and it's always great to see how busy it gets with wee ones and adults getting stuck into some cool mess activities, and the rain stayed off too, which was a bonus. And finally, the Cancer Research UK Relay for Life at the AAA on the 16th of August. It was an honour to officially open the second annual Relay for Life event for Cancer Research UK held in Kilmarnock. Like last year, the event is entirely volunteer-led and aims to celebrate community, resilience, remembrance and hope for those affected by cancer and their loved ones. All funds raised go into the Cancer Research Scotland Institute in Glasgow. Last year, this event raised over £80,000. It was emotional but also wonderful to see many cancer surviving doing the first lap round the running track, and then the families, charities and organisations following on. It's great to meet so many of them, and I'd like to thank everyone involved making that day so special for so many. So thank you. We'll move on to business proper, members, and first agenda item is declarations of interest. David.
Not particularly given the items on the agenda anticipating any, but as always, just to remind members, it is members' responsibility to comply with the code. You know what your interests are. If you've registered anything, you should certainly declare. But given the business on the agenda, I wouldn't expect it, but it's for members to make those decisions and intimate. I wouldn't expect any, but members know best. So.
Thanks, David. Any members like to declare an interest in anything? No, we all good? Okay, members, before we move on to business proper, I've asked David Mitchell for an update on the fire in King Street that happened on the 14th of July. David, is it okay to give an update on that?
Sure, thanks, Provost. I mean, members will be aware of most of it. I think you'd have to have been in Mars over the summer not to be, but as members know, there was unfortunately a very serious fire. It was kind of obvious from pretty much early on that it was looking like a total loss. Colleagues across various services, Blair and his team in Housing and Communities, Jane and Craig and Ara and their teams, Barry Roy in particular in building standards, and I have to say that the contractor played a blinder. They had the initiative there. It was actually the contractor from the multi-storey that approached us and said, we are just up the road, we are on site, can we be of assistance? And obviously in terms of having to act on an emergency basis and mobilise a contractor, it was handy. But having brought them in, because it made sense to bring them in, they played an absolute blinder. Their commitment and their tenacity, their skills, the whole crew, led to a very successful operation. I think it was 2 weeks from start to finish, 3 weeks from the fire till the final reopening, but the actual demolition, complex as it was highly challenging at different times. We made early contact with the loss adjuster, so while Barry's out there managing the contractor, we were raiding the council tax records and land registered records, and trying to ascertain as much as we could about ownership, and made early contact with the owners. Then the loss adjuster, and I think it was by the Thursday of the first week, Barry Roy and I were up on the roof of the building next to the affected building to let them see the damage and get them on board early. And that gave us the comfort that while they couldn't, on behalf of the insurers, commit to anything formally and take it and agree any action, they gave us the comfort that their expectation was it would be a total loss. Obviously, we were acting under emergency powers. There's a duty on the local authorities, Building Standards Authority, to deal with dangerous buildings in the first instance without taking time to serve notices because of the high risk to public safety. And we operate under emergency powers, and then we'll seek to recover the costs. So it was a fairly fraught 2 weeks. Another colleague was head of service was David McDowell and his team, and members of Aware arrangements were put in place to try and provide some reasonable and proportionate financial support to both the businesses in the affected building and to a lower extent in terms of the awards. Some of the businesses round about also affected by this. That was simply to recognise the absolute impact in the businesses, and that whatever the situation, there will always be a degree of irrecoverable or uninsured loss, etc. So it was just to ease the impact. There's a whole range of tales. I wouldn't not single out one owner to the exclusion of the rest, but you know there were a number of unfortunate stories in there. There was a business that had only just taken on ownership of their part of the building about 18 days, I think it was, before the fire, and had just set up. We were able to work with them. We managed to get them. They got new premises. We managed to get them new licences. So all the council services have worked well together to try and minimise the impact on the businesses and on the town centre and on the other businesses in the town centre, and keep the closure as limited as we could. I don't make comparisons. I'm very parochial. I look inwards, but comparisons been made. I think up in Perth and Kinross did a similar situation, and they were nearer a year to get the high street reopened. But again, if you don't know the detail up there, it's maybe not that meaningful a comparison. But just to touch base there, 2 weeks from start to finish was a hell of a job, even if I say that myself. So the next steps are, we have already written out to the owners. That's where things can get complicated. We have completed the emergency demolition. The costs have come in very favourable. Rough estimates, and I can't go into detail just now, but rough estimates initially were probably in the ballpark of 300,000 to 400,000. It's more likely it will come in at half of that. The council has and will continue to engage with the owners in order to recover those costs from the owners. The property was insured, and therefore there will be good prospects of recovery. The site has been contained. The rubble sits behind the hoarding. We've tried to secure the site. Ownership of the site remains with the owners, and what we've asked them to do, because there are multiple owners, I think we're 17 or 18 different owners. There's one unit, for instance, that's got 4 owners, 4 co-owners. So that's a lot of parties. So we've asked them, and they've all agreed in principle to appoint a single person to speak in their behalf that we can then negotiate with. We've dealt with phase 1, which was making it safe and containing the site. Phase 2 will be now what happens next. That's obviously in their gift, because the site and what's left of the rubble remains in their ownership. I think the points to note are that there will be a significant cost even to clear that site, because as the loss adjuster helpfully said, the nature type design and materials in that kind of building of that era, it's likely there would have been contaminants in there, which will have obviously be sitting within that overall rubble. It probably means that when the site's cleared, there will be a significant cost simply to remove the rubble from the site before you do anything else. And that will need to be factored into anyone's proposals for the site. We've made it known, and we will continue to be clear that if the owners don't have any proposals for the site, and that's their decision, and it's their site, if they don't have any proposals and can't agree on any proposals, and I think members would understand that the prospect and the need to rebuild it is very low, given the other buildings that are available in the location that are also available and perhaps not fully occupied. So I don't know that the likely outcome will be a rebuild, which begs the question then of what are the options. They've been made aware that the council would be open to further discussion and being part of any solution, but recognising the council has no capital budget for this. But clearly, if that were a prospect and there was a deal to be done, then the council would look to work with the neighbourhood board, focusing on the town centre regeneration piece and see what could be done in partnership with the neighbourhood board. But this is all just possibilities at the moment, and it very much will be informed by what the group of owners, the rather large group of owners, want to do with the proceeds of the claim, how they want to divvy it up, and whether or not they can agree on a way forward. We would hope to work with them and get an agreed solution, whether it be by their hand or involving the council taking on the site, not to rebuild a building, but to maybe bring it into public realm and public accessible space and trying to use it to increase footfall. There's loads of options there, but it would be better if it was done by negotiation. Clearly, as an absolute backstop, if nothing happens over a longer period, we'd need to look at using any other statutory powers available to address it if it becomes a long-standing blight. But by early engagement with the loss adjuster, the insurers, the owners and their agent, then we would hope to get to a positive outcome, or as positive as it can be in the circumstances, recognising the unfortunate event and the massive impact it had on those businesses, the other businesses affected, and the town centre. But luckily we were able to keep that to a minimum. So thanks again to all colleagues. We managed this in the middle of that. I think we still had the farmers market the second Saturday after the event, and I know our colleagues were out there in early morning making that all happen as well. So I think thanks to all those colleagues I've mentioned, and just to confirm that I'm supporting Barry Roy as we continue to engage with the owners through building standards, not just to recover the costs, but to have that wider and early conversation about the next steps and work in partnership with the owners to try and secure a positive outcome in what is clearly a very negative overall situation. We'll do the best we can, and we'll keep council and members updated as and when there's anything to report. Thank you. Thanks, Provost.
Thanks, David. I've got a couple of members indicating they wish to speak so far. Leader.
Thanks. I'll keep it brief because I think David's speech has covered quite a lot of ground there. But just to say this, I come back, just from a weekend's holiday, and I saw the black smoke billowing out for the King Street direction. Excuse me. And I couldn't believe the extent and how quick and how ferocious the fire took hold of the buildings in King Street. I remember immediately I had my iPhone with me and I beamed the pictures, and I stood in the Timmer Brig in Kilmarnock and showed it to Eddie, and we just, as I was relaying it to him, we just couldn't believe just how quick the fire took hold. And I'm really, the job that the fires and the emergency services took, those 5 vehicles attended the fire, and they were all in there within about half an hour. And it was incredible to see the bravery of those guys dealing with that fire as it took hold. And really, when I saw it then, it could have spread across the river, it could have spread further up and down King Street, where House of Fraser used to be. And due to them containing it within that space, I mean, it was a massive blow, and I wouldn't like to understate to the 5 or 6 businesses that were in there, and we continue to support them. But I think the fire service deserve a word of thanks and praise for their efforts. Can also, just say it's been a massive loss. I remember that building. I can go back far back number of days. Maybe one or two will remember Cooper's, one of the first supermarket. Get in there with. It was one of the first supermarkets in the town, and that's the purpose. I remember when I was a wee boy getting out there, but it's had further uses, and it's been a building, a lovely red sandstone building. It's something that we're actually proud of in Kilmarnock, and I look forward to hopefully something like the Kilmarnock Neighbourhood Board looking to see how we reinstate this. Can I just maybe make a big shout out, as David says, the turnaround of that site, and you mentioned Perth, and we can look at the Station Hotel just down the road at Ayr and other sites that, the turnover, making that street safe required a lot of effort, and there's a number of your workers, but you mentioned one, and I'd just like to single them out. Barry Roy must have no slept for 3 days as he dealt with that, and I think Barry deserves a special mention in that context. as did the rest of the staff. And I'm really not going to comment about some of the abuse that took online. It was just ridiculous and out of order. But one of the things that I think all the members, all 32 members around here, would just be, not just particularly in Kilmarnock, but in some of our historic quarters right across East Ayrshire, that the lessons are learned, and we look hard just to make sure that they're not, where possible, we can take steps to make sure they're not repeated, and that we take care of our historic buildings right across East Ayrshire. And once again, just like to thank the staff here and the local business groups who rallied round, the KBA, Kilmarnock Business Association and Ayrshire Chamber of Commerce, stepped right in, offered help and assistance, as did some of the neighbouring businesses. And I was glad to welcome some of the businesses that were directly affected into my office, and through our own teams, through David McDowell's team in business support, and through Joe and his finance team, we were able to give support. And I'd like to thank yourself, David, the Chief Executive, for the hard work that went in there. Thank you, Provost.
Thanks, Leader. Councillor Cogley.
Provost, thank you very much, and I will keep it brief. I see that there were three main phases to this. The first, the contributory causes. Secondly, the recovery. And thirdly, what happens next. And I'll comment in reverse order. As far as what happens next is concerned, I would urge all of you to drive up the valley and go and have a look at Darvel and the corner site in Darvel, which is an inspiring use of an outdoor site that can be used all year round. So please do go and have a look at it, because it is excellent and it could be an inspiration for what we do on that particular site. As far as the recovery is concerned, I think the comments have already been made, and absolute full applause to everybody who was involved in the very rapid turnaround, and the communications too, to the comms team for keeping us all current on what was happening and getting the street opened again so quickly. Back to the cause, the contributory causes.
Councillor Crossley, sorry, if you just permit me, just to urge caution, and I know we've discussed this, that when we talk about the causes of the fire, just to remind all members that that's currently subject to live criminal proceedings, and therefore to urge caution on any commentary or any discussion that may take place in any member in the chamber. So it's not just directly yourself, it's just a general reminder that the direct cause of the fire is very much subject to current criminal proceedings, and we wouldn't want to discuss or raise anything here, any member or any officer, that might contaminate or prejudice those proceedings. So it's just a general word of caution. Sorry, Provost.
Thank you very much for the word of caution, and my comments are going to be overview comments in any event. And suffice to say, there was clearly an alignment of factors, and I think we owe it to our constituents to do some sort of investigation into what those contributory factors were or are, to ensure that nothing like that happens again. Thank you.
That would be a matter for the council and for the chief executive for any instructions that are given. But I would just stress that the investigation into the cause is obviously led by Police Scotland, who have concluded and reported to the Procurator Fiscal in terms of the direct. In terms of the wider context, that would be for council, but I don't know that it's for here and now today.
I absolutely agree that it's not for here and now, but I just feel it should be registered that it's something that we can't leave and that we need to relook at it and to investigate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cogley. Councillor Boyd.
Thanks, Provost. Yeah, just to support my colleagues' comments, yeah. It was a real shock. Thank the emergency services, the police, the fire brigade, for their swift and effective action. Officers and all the work they've done. David's highlighted that in the communication strategy, which was really good, letting the public know that when sections of King Street were opened, and regarding the wider town centre and the safety. And again, David mentioned this one as well. Thompson's a Prudhoe, the multi-storey demolition contractor. I was in the back of the red brick building a year or two before the fire, and that was a lot of wood panelling, probably 100 years of varnish, highly inflammable. So for what I've seen as an amateur, the extent of the fire was a great shock. So they realised I had photos inside, and you know, they asked me to see them, you know, for the demolition, and I know myself it was really, really intricate. So top marks to Thompson's for getting that down safely, because there was one bit where it was just support pillars and one in the facades. I'm very conscious of the comments David's made there, because I do think we need to look at the root causes. And David, you can stop me if I do anything wrong here, you know. My opinion is, you know, given what we see in the town centre, events like this aren't a great surprise.
I think I
Well,
would need
do you
to
want me to
stop you.
stop me?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think,
okay,
Councillor
that's
Boyd,
fine. No, I want you
I
to.
think if there's a debate to be had
Yes.
about the connection between
Aye.
litter and bins and fires getting started, it's not for
No,
here and
it's-
now.
I wasn't going to be about bins.
Well, let's not find out the hard way, and let's not find out the Standards
Yeah.
Commission, Councillor
No,
Boyd.
that's
If
okay.
members want to raise things, we're happy
Yeah.
to support that and do it in appropriate means through the appropriate channels,
Yeah.
and to bring forward reports at the request of council as and when required.
Yeah.
But we have had a serious incident. There are live criminal proceedings, and I say again, I would urge caution to all members without going into wider issues. If there are issues for the council, we'll pick them up at the appropriate time. But I say if there are issues, and I appreciate there are different opinions in that, but we all know what we say about opinions. Everybody has one.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's for here and now, or for the council to start to speculate on what wider factors may have contributed. If there's rubbish in bins, then there's material for people to set fire to if they are minded to do so.
David, I wasn't even going to mention that point. That certainly wasn't what I was going to mention. It was more about the policing, etc. But I'll leave that. Certainly not the one you're talking about. If you don't want me to, I'll just leave that. But there's an expectation from the public that we discuss that and investigate that, you know, so we don't have any repeats. But if you want me to leave it, I'll leave it.
What I would say through you, Provost, to remind members and give all members assurance, the council's own approach to antisocial behaviour by anybody, including young people, is currently under full review. You have the enforcement review in play that will report back in December. We are developing an antisocial behaviour strategy that will also come to council for approval. So all these wider issues about how we manage antisocial behaviour in our communities are in play and will be addressed by the council through due process through those reports. I don't think it helps for this council to sit and have a speculative conversation about what may or may not have played in the background, given at the end of the day you're dealing with a very serious crime committed by very young people, allegedly, and that needs to be dealt with first. If there are issues for the council, and this council agrees there are issues for this council, and that's a majority view, then obviously the council will put arrangements in place to deal with them. What I'm reminding members is there are already things in play that address the wider issues and concerns that councils have already expressed about antisocial behaviour, litter and fly tipping and all aspects of that, and matters are in hand. You have the enforcement review to see how we might improve in our overall offer, and you have the antisocial behaviour strategy looking at how we might improve, if we can improve, and I say if, on how we manage antisocial behaviour within particular groups and sections within the community. So those matters are in play, and if there are lessons to be learned, they can be built into the council's further consideration of those matters when it comes before council, but I wouldn't say for today.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'll address that when appropriate, when the papers come up in the future. That's fine, David. Thanks.
Right, thanks, Councillor Foley. Thanks, David, for keeping us right. Does any other member have anything specific to the incident or response itself? No. Okay. Well, if we could move on, members, that would be great. So agenda item 2 is just the previous minutes of the last council meeting, and I would move as a correct record.
Second, Provost.
Thank you, Deputy Provost. Is there any questions? Good. Okay, agenda item 3 is the Cabinet Committee minutes. Leader.
Move as a correct record, Provost.
Second, that, Provost.
Thanks, Deputy Leader. Are there any questions? Leader.
Just in terms of the Police, Fire and Rescue Committee, there's 2 bits in here. One's in paragraph 2 in relation to discussion the increase in hate crime, and also in terms of the next paragraph, page 18, intimidation and assault of retail workers. Members, I'm sure most of you have seen some of the stuff in social media regarding the development of the Dean Street flats in my constituency, and I have been absolutely appalled at the racism, hatred that's been driven against the owner and some of the construction workers in that site. This has been stirred up. Something that I don't, of a tone that I don't recognise, certainly within my community in Kilmarnock and East Ayrshire. And I know that some of the racism and hatred is coming from people out with our communities. But there are some people that are drawn to this as well. And a lot of this has been fabricated and based on absolute tissue of lies about the development of the building, and I would absolutely condemn it. It's something I don't recognise in my community, and it's something that I would wish to highlight. I mentioned in terms of the next bit is about retail workers. This is spread not just from the building site itself, and I believe there's criminal matters maybe taking place in terms of some of this racial crime. But this has spread to some of the retailers who've enjoyed businesses in that community, thriving businesses, and some of their staff and some of their owners are also getting racial abuse as a consequence of some of this racism that's been stirred up for political reasons. And I'm pleased to see that some of my colleagues and other local members, and I'd like to thank Councillor Sangster in particular, and my colleagues, the Provost, and yourself for for condemning that outright, and my deputy Jim McMahon as well. It's something I don't recognise in my community, and something we should condemn. And I hope that where we can stand up for those in the community that have got nothing to do with racism, and stand up to the lies that have been reported in social media, and we can do all we can to cooperate with the police and stand up to racists. Thanks.
Very well said, Lisa. Deplorable, unacceptable, and a whole lot. So very well said. Councillor Sangster.
Thank you, Provost. I just want to reiterate and back up fully what Councillor Reid has said there. I've been utterly appalled at reading some of the stuff that I've read on social media. I've been appalled at the manner in which some people have been treated. The Dean Street flats are in my area. I had to go and visit the shop owners. I've had to go and reassure people about what's been happening round about that development. And what Councillor Reid said is absolutely right. For anybody to spread complete lies on social media and stir up hatred and racism, it saddens me to the core, and I'm utterly appalled by it. But you know what? We are East Ayrshire, we are better than that. And we as elected members will continue to support every single person in our community, regardless of the religion, their ethnic background or anything like that. So I fully back what Councillor Reid said here today. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Brilliant, Lily. Thanks very much for that, Jane. It's super important, absolutely. Councillor Ian Linton online.
Thanks very much, Provost. And I would just like to add my full support to what both Councillor Reid and Councillor Sangster have said. I think what has happened recently is deplorable. I think we should stand together and see this challenge off. Thank you.
Well done, Council. Absolutely. Any other questions on any of the Cabinet or committee minutes? Okay, thanks, members. Moving on to agenda item number 4. This report is by Marion Macaulay. It's the annual report of the Chief Social Work Officer 24-25, and you can find it on pages 44 to 78 in your papers. Marion.
Thank you, Provost. Good morning, members. This morning I present to you the annual Chief Social Officer report for the year 2024-25. In presentation of the annual Chief Social Officer report, a short film has been produced which will highlight some of the key areas of development for the last year. Before the film plays, I wanted to say a few words. I think it might just happen by magic in a wee minute. As I said before, the role of being your Chief Social Work Officer and professional leader of the social work workforce in East Ayrshire is a genuine privilege. It's a position that allows me to become involved in the social work and social care that is delivered across East Ayrshire. It takes me beyond my own operational portfolio as Head of Children's Healthcare and Justice Services, and allows me to see and hear about all the key developments that are taking place. And I am humbled every day by the work that happens across East Ayrshire as we strive to support people live their best possible lives. As Chief Social Officer, I have professional responsibility for the social work and social care practice that is delivered in East Ayrshire and take this responsibility seriously. The report sets out the wider context and governance of the role. The role of the Chief Social Officer is enshrined in statute and was enshrined to ensure the provision of appropriate professional advice to the local authority and the Integration Joint Board is good practice in the discharge of defined statutory functions. There is an expectation that the Chief Social Officer should assist local authorities and their partners in understanding the complexities and cross-cutting nature of social work service delivery. This includes in relation to particular issues such as corporate parenting, child protection, adult protection, and the management of high-risk offenders, and also the key role that social work plays in contributing to the achievement of a wide range of national and local outcomes. I trust the report presented today covers all areas. As Chief Social Officer, I'm proud of the services that we deliver in an incredibly difficult financial climate, and I hope you are too. The report is presented within the structure and guidelines set out by Scottish Government. There has been a change to the guidance and the structure of the report, so what you see this year is slightly different from previous years. Within this context, there is a heavy focus on statutory work and a renewed focus on equality, diversity, and anti-racist practice. Social work and social care is delivered within a statutory framework, and there are certain situations that we must become involved in. Whilst understanding that statutory context is important, I believe it is of equal importance to highlight that social work and social care is so much more than this. East Ayrshire has a skilled and dedicated social work and social care workforce that places at the core of practice relationship-based social work. As the financial pressure on social work and social care services increases, the risk of becoming confined to only delivering those statutory services also increases. The outcomes for people who used and need services will reduce, and outcomes will be so much poorer as a consequence. This is a complicated dynamic, but one that over time ultimately leads to more demand and complexity at a later life point. One of the key functions of social work and social care is to collaborate and partner with people and all those who support them. No one person lives in isolation. They have a network around them, and it's when this network is brought together that we can understand what a good life looks like for that individual, and we work together with them to help them live their best possible life. Again, I hope the report showcases some of this collaborative approach. In my presentation to Council last year, I spoke of the risks to services should our budgets become tighter and more stretched. I noted that this risk was about the ability to deliver early intervention prevention. There is no doubt that the last year has been incredibly challenging for social work and social care services as a consequence of the financial pressures across the sector. I'll touch on that a little bit later, but first, by magic, I think the short film will play. Thanks, Rab. I hope you enjoyed the film. Um, the report profiles that demand for social work and social care has increased. This is a year-on-year cumulative trend which challenges the delivery of services due to operational pressures. In meeting the needs of the most vulnerable, difficult decisions have had to be made, and I know you're aware of those decisions. This has had a great impact on those who receive services, but also on those who deliver them. Remarkably, performance has largely been maintained, which is a testament to the workforce and their commitment to the people of East Ayrshire. East Ayrshire has continually performed and benchmarked incredibly well in supporting people transfer from hospital without long delays. And despite the challenges faced, we remain in the upper quartile for Scotland. Our partner care homes who support our older residents live in a homely setting when they cannot remain at home participated in some fantastic events over the course of the year, such as Silver Pride, an event pioneered in East Ayrshire and recognised nationally about the impact it had. Research tells us if you want the best outcomes for people, whether that be infants, children, young people or vulnerable adults, key is to them remaining at home or in settings as close to homely as possible. For adults, the Reablement Service has seen some fantastic outcomes, working with people regain skills for independent living, which in turn leads to cost avoidance and efficiency. We have introduced Playlists for Life, which is a simple but highly effective way of connecting with people and creating calm. As usual, Eric has provided me with a quote in advance of today to profile the impact of this simple initiative. And it relates to a situation where a gentleman was being supported at the end of his life, but also sang along to his playlist. His wife told carers how lovely it was to hear him sing, and that would remain a memory that she would cherish. Small things make a huge difference. Our justice teams have continued to develop their approach to trauma-sensitive and responsive practice. The approach sees the person first and seeks to understand why they are, where they are, and how they got there. This approach strives to support people recover from adversity and trauma, and doing so, moving away from the behaviour that resulted in their criminal conviction. In children and families, we have led the way in Ayrshire as lead partner in taking forward the Barna House approach, or Bairns House as it's become known in Scotland. There are a number of strands to this approach, but ultimately it's about creating the right conditions to allow children who have been harmed and abused or witnessed to serious events to tell their story. A key principle is that every child has the right to tell their story in a safe place, and in doing so, that they and their family have the right, have access to recovery and justice. We have a number of key work streams to take this national political agenda forward. One of which hears loudly the voice of children about what a good Bairns House looks like. Sadly, in East Ayrshire, we do not yet have the appropriate space for children to tell their story through video interviews and need to use spaces like schools. Children tell us from our participation and engagement work stream that does not work for them. They have, however, told us what does work for them, and they like spaces, and they would like spaces and opportunities where they would be able to have access to open space, and ice cream was mentioned as well. So it's important that we listen to the voice of children. The work around Bairns House is an area of ongoing work and focus. We have a dedicated, specially trained team of interviewers from Police Scotland and social work services that support across Ayrshire to interview children. And their disclosure rate from interviews is in excess of 80%, which is pretty remarkable. We have continued to invest in our mental health officer workforce. This is a key role, and they fulfil specific statutory functions that only mental health officers may undertake. Despite the challenges, this is a team and service that continues to benchmark incredibly well nationally. Last year, I spoke about the uncertainty around the scale, scope, constitution and timing of the National Care Service. Over the last year, this has become clearer. We are now in the shadow year of the Scottish Social Work Partnership. This is a partnership between COSLA, the newly created National Social Work Agency, and Social Work Scotland. Each agency has a lead area. COSLA is leading on workforce development, Social Work Scotland on social work leadership, and the National Social Work Agency on social work learning and development. I anticipate that additional cross-cutting themes will emerge as this partnership becomes established and matures. Looking forward, I believe it's important to profile the challenges that it is anticipated this sector will experience in the next 12 months. Social work and social care services in East Ayrshire are delivered through the Health and Social Care Partnership Commission via the Integrated Joint Board. The report sets out the financial challenges experienced in the last financial year, with the cost of services being delivered more than the budget allocated. As a result, the starting position for the financial year is compounded by the need to make additional savings with the pressures experienced in the last financial year, likely to be at least as challenging, if not more so. This will impact on the services that can be delivered. This creates an incredibly challenging environment to deliver services to those who need it most, and challenges opportunities for early intervention and prevention within the context of increasing demand and complexity that's been profiled within the report. This is further compounded by demography challenges. People are living longer, that's a good thing. However, the need for services as a consequence is increasing. Further to this, research tells us that when children need to be cared for away from home, cared for away from home from their family, best outcomes are achieved firstly in kinship care arrangements, then secondly, foster care arrangements. However, as you can see in the report, there is a national crisis in foster care recruitment. And this has seen the number of foster carers, not just in East Ayrshire, reduce, but actually nationally reduce. External fostering agencies have seen their fees and costs increase above rates of inflation, creating further financial challenge. This applies to all the Commission services that we use. Simply put, the budget allocated does not meet the increase in costs and demand. And we need to work in order to maintain our services within the budget allocated. These are but two examples of the challenges faced by social work and social care services. There's more detail contained within the report. As always, I will conclude with the workforce. In East Ayrshire, we are blessed with a dedicated, skilled and committed workforce who often go above and beyond in their support to vulnerable people in East Ayrshire. They are our greatest asset. We must value and appreciate them. Indeed, we must support them to deliver services in the most challenging of times. For those who receive services, they are the face of social work and social care in East Ayrshire. And I ask that you show appreciation to them in all that they do to support our most vulnerable communities and people. So finally, I will conclude and take you back to the recommendations in section 2 of the report, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mariana. Really extensive and wide variety of things in there. So no mean feat. Well done to yourself and your department and team. Councillor Maitland.
Thank you, Marion. And I know you were disappointed that we actually had to reduce your report this year. That was Scottish Government's fault. They won't let you put your quotes in from the children's voices, and this would have been a nice place for them to have their voices heard. An excellent report. It certainly shows the Council's ambition for early and effective intervention and prevention, whether that's through our speech and language for children. And we know that the impact this has on the prison services, and another early intervention prevention in the prison services is reopening the workshops to give people a chance when they get back out, just that extra skills learned. And of course, we've talked before about the power of attorney, and I know that we're reviewing that to see if it works, and that has a great impact on our delayed discharges. We have to admit that there is a slight trend upwards, but we still are an outlier in how good our delayed discharge services are, and then that's getting people into the right home at the right time. So there's one thing I'd just like to bring everyone's attention to, and that's in page 58, and you mentioned it yourself, and it's the amount of referrals that you've had to deal with, 7,500, I think it is. And there's also the adult referrals in page 64, but I think the children and family services on page 58 gives us an absolute indication of the challenge that is facing us. And I think that it's possibly due to the eligibility criteria. If you could maybe look at that for some information on that. Our statutory obligations are what we deliver now. However, the care homes and the care at home and the way we're trying to do things differently, especially in the digital care, I think that's going to help us financially. We know that the telemobile has been the equivalent of introducing 40 staff. So I find it hard to believe we were using pen and paper to allocate our carers, but now we can see the immediate impact that that's had on how we, especially in the double-handed care situation, how we get them out to our people that need them. The tech hub, I think we've all visited by now, and I'd like to go back a few more times if that's possible. And I know my colleague Stephen Canning's quite impressed with the digital side of that as well. However, going back to the care homes, the national insurance has had a great impact on how we can deliver that within our care home partners. And I think that's part of the financial problem that's coming towards us, as well as recruitment. And I know there's been some great recruitment drives, and just this week we've had some more recruitment drives for health and social care too. However, I would like to talk a little bit about something, because I know we weren't allowed to be sort of light-hearted today, but I think we should talk about what we do within the care homes and the Great Bake Off. I just thought it was incredible. I think it took me 2 weeks before I got rid of all the cakes that I'd eaten. It was a sugar high, and these care homes are wonderful places with wonderful staff, people who really care. We saw it in the Olympics as well. I know that's one of Eddie's favourites. A few more years, Eddie, and you could be taking part yourself legitimately. And I think I might be joining you, because bus pass next year. So, but you said at the end, it's the staff and what they deliver, and they really are our greatest asset. I would like personally to thank Eric for the work that he's done, and I know you managed to get a little quote in from him as well. He's overseen the care, how we change our care packages. But all the staff, I think they're an asset to us, an absolute asset. So I just want to say thank you very much. Thank you for the report, and here's to next year's challenges.
Thanks very much, Claire. Marion?
No, thank you for that. And I will certainly feed back to Eric on your kind words. I'm sure he will appreciate that. The constraints of the report meant that some of the amazing things that we're involved in, and we are involved in amazing things, albeit in challenging times, such as the Great Care Home Bake Off, the Care Home Games, Silver Pride that I mentioned. They enrich the lives of people that live in care homes away from their own homes. And actually what we've seen in the last year is some of our care homes achieve exceptional inspection reports and grades from the regulator, the Care Inspectorate. And in fact, one of our care homes has achieved excellent grading, which is phenomenal and testament to the quality of our partner care homes. So thank you for mentioning that. I think tech is important. We need to look to the future for solutions in the challenging times that we live. And I think our tech hub is ever evolving, as it should. And every time you go, you see something different. I think the genius in the tech hub is that everything that's available is available to you or I. It's not something that needs to be specifically or particularly purchased from special providers. You could go onto any kind of online retail provider and probably buy those. And I think we've seen the impact of that for lots of people. And again, touching on tech and how it impacts on the workforce, Total Mobile again, which is it's the simplest thing, but it's just so clever in terms of that scheduling tool and how it dynamically puts people where they need to be at the right time. Is in its early stages of implementation, and I know over time, and with any implementation there are bumps along the road, but I would imagine that this time next year we'll be starting to see the true impact of Total Mobile. And I think the final point that you touched on was around the increasing referrals that are being recorded within the Children Families team. It is a significant increase, and as you can imagine, with that significant increase, there's an impact, and I think it reflects the complexity of what families are living with in East Ayrshire, the complexity of poverty, albeit our rates of poverty are reducing, which is amazing. The complexity of intergenerational trauma, complexity of domestic abuse, alcohol, drugs, things that you all know about poor mental health, and you know, the key to that is working together by creating a really strong first response for people, for making every interaction that we have with people impactful and positive in terms of achieving outcomes. And we continue, from a social work perspective, continue to strengthen and look to see how we can develop and evolve that first response, so that front door response to those referrals, to ensure that we can make that impact at the earliest possible time. So I hope that covers the key points that you raised. Thank you.
Thanks, Marion. Thanks, Claire. Councillor Boyd.
Thanks, Provost. Thanks, Marion. Yeah, just to build on Councillor Maitland's point about care homes, just Rosebank, slightly different over the fence there. Visited that recently for the history afternoon. It's a really, really good setup. Really impressed with the facilities there and great interaction with the people who visit it. But my main point, you know, just on your report, early intervention, and you know, early intervention education is a big factor. Across Scotland, there is crisis as such in attendance at schools, non-attendance. So I'm just wondering, within East Ayrshire, how are we working, how's social work working with families and children to get them back attending school if they've got long-term absences or not attending school at all? And you know, there's maybe just some ideas out there. Would social work, I know you mentioned about getting into schools, but social work, maybe when pupils go back to school, even shadow them in within the classrooms, get a feel of how they're learning, you know, just maybe try some different things. I'm just really interested in how social work can support with attendance issues, you know, in the long term there, and try and improve that there, because, you know, there's a bigger picture. When pupils go to school, you know, it helps their whole life. So just that for you, Marion, thanks.
Thank you. So I'm obviously aware attendance at school in East Ayrshire is an issue. It's an issue across Scotland, and it's a legacy from the pandemic. So we need to understand what that means for young people. So in the context of those 7,000 referrals, very few of those relate to, there will be some that relate to attendance at school. So we will become involved with families where there are issues beyond simply not attending at school, because we need to, you know, social work service is a small service. We need to target our resources to the most vulnerable and those that need the intervention the most. And we will work, but however, we will work in collaboration with colleagues in education, colleagues in CAMS, around supporting young people overcome some of the challenges and the reasons why they're not attending school. We need to understand what that's about. And I know that there's work ongoing with colleagues in education, particularly around seeking to increase attendance for those that are not going. And I know from research, there's really strong research, and I'm really pro supporting our young people to attend school. We know that if children attend school on a full-time basis, there is an exponential positive impact on their life outcomes, amongst other factors, but that is a really significant. So we're really invested in supporting children to access the education that meets their needs.
Thanks, Mary. Linda?
Really good question, Councillor Boyd, and I obviously can't comment, I wouldn't attempt to comment for another service in regards to support in the space, but just to advise that there is a councillor conversation coming up in that absolute regard. You'll be aware that census stats were published, and clearly it was a big concern for us post-pandemic. The stats are only published every 2 years, which I always find quite disappointing, but the good news in Chamber today is that those stats are up really good increase in that regard, and there is ongoing work in terms of that piece. But obviously there are some young people for whom full-time attendance is really difficult. Thus the inception of the SL33 model. So you've got that blended approach. So maybe part SL3366, bit of college, bit of school. So we also have our online school provision as well. So really looking forward to bringing that as a package to members in due course, and talk about some of the supports that we're getting from other agencies in that space as well. So look forward to inviting you to that in due course, Councillor Boyd, but really good question in that space.
Thank you. That okay?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for the answers. I say, education, attendance school solves a lot of problems.
Thank you. Councillor Sangster.
Thank you, Provost. I've just got a couple of kind of comments and maybe a couple of questions. I think first of all, it's really important that we acknowledge the work of unpaid carers, particularly young carers. And I think it's really important to acknowledge the work that these particularly the young people do, and even older people who are finding themselves in a position where they have to look after their elderly parents. So, I think all credit to anybody that does that. Also kinship carers as well. We have a lot of kinship carers out there. And, a lot of these people are actually grandparents who've finding themselves in a position where they're having to look after some grandchildren for whatever reason. So absolute credit to anybody who does that. And I know that social work are good at supporting these people, and I hope that continues. Regarding on page 57, there still seems to be this issue. It's saying there over 11,000 bed days are lost as a result of delayed discharge. So delayed discharge obviously seems to still be an issue. But I know the intermediate care team are doing great work in hopefully preventing hospital admissions, but equally they're there to obviously facilitate a discharge, and hopefully it's a successful discharge and not a failed discharge. So if you could maybe just give us maybe expand on that a wee bit of what the integrated care team are doing in regards to that, and trying to reduce the number of delayed discharges. And also on page 57, I found the statistic interesting about 63% of personal carers are qualified to Scottish Social Service Council standard, which means nearly 40% aren't. Could you maybe just expand on that and maybe give us just a wee bit of clarity on what you mean by, the standard and what we're doing to maybe encourage personal carers to be more qualified in what they're doing? Thank you.
Thanks very much. And absolutely, unpaid carers, whether young carers or otherwise, are incredibly important, and we seek to support them through the support of the carer centre. And again, similarly with kinship carers, kinship carers are invaluable. What we know, this is evidence-based, that in terms of the best outcomes for children who need to be cared for away from their parents, the best outcomes are achieved by their wider family, so kinship carers. Their next best outcomes are achieved in a similarly homely setting, in foster care. And then you're going into the world of children's houses and external residential care, and we know they don't yield the best outcomes for children and young people. The irony, of course, being as you go up the worst outcomes, you also go up the cost of the placement. So there is something that we need to do around how we develop our offer and support to kinship carers so they're able to look after more children. So we change the balance of care from external provision, children's house provision, and foster care provision to extended family provision. And that's something we're incredibly mindful about. So thank you for raising that. I really appreciate it. The challenge of a delayed transfer from hospital is something that people are grappling across the country. As I said in the presentation, East Ayrshire performs incredibly well in relation to that. We're in the upper upper quartile across Scotland around our delays. Delays are complex. There's a lot of different reasons for why people remain in hospital longer than they should be. Some of that is linked to, you mentioned power of attorney, and folk not having power of attorney in place, and people being able to make decisions on their behalf when they don't have capacity. If you don't have a power of attorney, please go and arrange it for yourselves now. Just for honesty, I have one in place. It's easy to do. So that's really important. So we are going to take a different approach around that, which is about promoting it in a different way, and there'll probably be something coming forward in relation to that. Prevention, as I think you'll get the sense in the report, is prevention is better than anything else that we can do, and that's what the ICT team seek to do, is to prevent the deterioration of people's circumstances through physical activity, encouraging them to access things like physio and such like. So all of those things are really important. In fact, yesterday we had a presentation at sorry, I'm going off piece now. We had a presentation at the Integrated Joint Board around the impact of community health days where there's targeted support and what that does for individuals. Both the one we heard about yesterday was about health well-being, but there have been previous ones around AHPs as well, and that's about identifying folk early in order to prevent their situations deteriorating. That's what the ICT team seeks to do. I hope that covers the points that you raised. Thank you.
It was just my other point about the training for the
Apologies, yes, I missed that one. It's the one I put in a box too. So our personal carers, we're continuing recruiting personal carers. It's a real challenge to have the workforce that we need, and obviously we want them to be meeting the standards and the expectations of the Scottish Social Services Council. So our learning hub, our social care learning hub, supports people undertake the SVQ requirements that meet this as part of their journey into East Ayrshire and supporting them in their career. When these qualifications came in, when this requirement came in a number of years ago, we did sadly see some people leave because they made a decision not to pursue that. So this work is taken forward through the social care learning hub. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we can all agree that personal carers out there are worth their weight in gold, aren't they? I wish we could pay them what they were worth, but we'd bankrupt the council, wouldn't we? So, but no, all credit to them, and the ground floor staff in social work do a fantastic job. So thank you.
For sure, thank you. Okay. Craig MacArthur, thanks.
It's just a minor point, but probably quite an important one in the context of the training stuff we just picked up on there, Councillor Sangster. So both Eric and myself had met with colleagues from Ayrshire College just a couple of weeks ago to talk about opportunities in terms of career pathways. So just now people come to work with us and then they go through that SSC or the SVQ process whilst in work, which is really helpful and it's good. But there's also that opportunity for people to leave school and go to college and get qualifications there and then come to us work ready. So it's making sure that the offer at the college actually aligns to that as well. So some really good conversations just about the opportunities for people to leave the college with the right SVQ qualifications. So actually when they start with us, they've already ticked that box so they can hit the ground running. So there's opportunities there particularly for younger people coming to work with us. I think that's what we want to see in terms of actually changing the profile of our workforce as well, making it a career of choice for people. So there's opportunities in there that we're really keen to explore and exploit as we go forward.
That's great, thanks. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watts.
Thank you, Provost. Marion, thank you very, very much for this report. It is an excellent report. And, it really highlights the challenges that we've got as a council and across social services and healthcare. There are a couple of points I want to highlight. It is really disappointing to see that you know, there's been reductions in foster care. Foster care is extremely important. And I think, you know, to see that we've got reductions there in families coming forward to foster care is very disappointing. And I think there's obviously work that needs to be done there. Adoption, I am absolutely think it's brilliant that we've taken place in the online adoption exchange day. That's really brilliant, and it really highlights the work we're doing. The work we're doing with the East Ayrshire Advocacy Service to help and better understand the needs of birth parents. I think that's very important. Very, very important. So well done on that one. And again, highlighting the fact that we're tackling poverty and the work of the financial inclusion team. You know, looking at page 68, where we've supported, you know, 1,671 referrals, which resulted in, you know, £5 million, or just over £5 million of financial gains for residents in East Ayrshire. So that's excellent work as well. So a big thank you to the teams across social work and also within the health settings, because I think the work you're doing is brilliant, but we certainly have serious challenges moving forward. The national insurance changes have not made it easy for any of the sections at all. So well done. Well done.
Thanks, Councillor Watts. Councillor Todd.
Thank you very much, Provost, and thanks, Marion. A few points, if that's okay. The first one, community justice in Ayrshire, doing a great job, talking about justice here, doing a brilliant job, and I would ask, sorry to put Richard on the spot, but I would ask maybe a wee synopsis of the great initiative that's going on at Kilmarnock Prison with incarcerated folk in there, maybe getting some training in the prison, having an interview, and maybe, if they fit the criteria, getting employment within the council when they come out. That would stop that rotation of coming out and getting blasted at the weekend and getting straight back into the jail. So hopefully that's going to come to fruition, and I hope it makes a change to people's lives. On the prison itself, I would appreciate some help. We're trying to get the bus services to take families into the prison to drop them off, because getting over to that bus stop the other side of the 76 is an absolute nightmare for families going to visit. It's a health and safety issue. I've raised it with community justice, and we've got support with them. So it'd be great if we get some partners involved, social work, community justice together, and try and get a drop-off point a lot closer to the prison. The families are getting absolutely soaked walking up that long drive to get and see their loved ones. So that would be good. And the other one was, we used to have a prison visitor. There was a councillor in the council long before the pandemic. One of our councillors went and visited the prison and gave a mini surgery, if you like. And I wondered if that was an option, maybe, that all the members here and officers would think about reintroducing now that they're back in the SPS. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Todd. Richard?
Thanks, Provost. Thanks, Councillor Todd. So the work has commenced following approval by members in terms of the employability programme aligned with the prison Kilmarnock through our third sector partner. Those opportunities for enhanced training through the workshops have been identified, and work has started in terms of the development of those programmes and the investment in the workshops themselves. The staff in the prison, the governor, really supportive and identified some capital resource that started to now filter through in that space. We've then aligned that with the opportunities, as we talked about, both within the council and in a private setting through the work that David McDowell's team does as well. So early days, but it's certainly started, and I'd be very happy to work with the Enterprise Recovery Hub and get members an update in that space moving forward. But yeah, really excited about it, and obviously working very closely with Marion's team in that regard as well.
Yep. Thanks, Richard. Marion?
Thanks, and I'll pick up the issue of the prison visitor with the governor. Thanks.
Thank you. Is that okay?
Yeah, thanks, Provost. I go along to the prison regularly as a veterans champion because, unfortunately, there's some veterans incarcerated. And Centrepoint, Irvine, the Armed Forces charity, go along and have a breakfast with the Armed Forces veterans who are incarcerated. So I just wondered if I could expand that out and go back to where we were before. Thank you.
Thanks. I think that's a good suggestion. I don't know if it's some kind of establishment of some kind of visiting committee. I think I was there before, and I remember, I think it was Roseanne Cunningham, from memory, that used to attend when we did have something like that. And I think she went both there, and she went up to the big house in Glasgow as well. And I think the prison's got a lot from that. And I think it's maybe some to discuss with the take offline and discuss with the prison itself.
Just for information, that was a change at a national level around the prison visiting scheme. So that it was a national programme that was, and there was a change in model around that. We can still come back to members and tell you, but it wasn't a local thing that changed. It was a national thing that changed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cannon.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Marion, for that report. Always read this report, and I'm always, no disrespect to any other officers, but I'm always in awe of the complexity and the range of services that are within your portfolio. Just a couple of questions. One was, we've also mentioned the Smart Hub, and the only thing I'll say about that is I wasn't surprised to see that 95% of people that visit it say it's excellent. But I visited it last year with Joe, and I was struck by the comment that Joe made about the possibilities for digital, and the fact that actually what we should, or one of the things we need to be doing, is actually partnering outside the council to get people to help themselves with digital so that they're not actually coming into our orbit. And that's obviously where the major savings are achieved. So I don't know whether anybody wants to say anything about that. And the second question was around justice again. Obviously, it's great that 96% of the paybacks are being achieved on time, and obviously, I know the great work that Michelle does in that space. But I'm just wondering whether there's any maybe something you need to come back to us on around reoffending rates through the community payback process, to show us how well that's working. So I don't know if you've got anything on that, or maybe you want to come back to us on that point. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Provost. I mean, the Smart Hub is just amazing, and as I said earlier, it is about showcasing what's available to you and I, that we don't have to go in through organisations to access. And I think there are real possibilities about developing that into the future, and particularly supported through the work that Joe's team will lead around artificial intelligence and where that takes us as well. So we do have to embrace technology. It has a lot to offer us, and I'm sure that will develop massively over the next couple of years. In relation to unpaid work, the reoffending rate is about, I think it's 24% for East Ayrshire. And that's lower than it was about 5 years ago, which was about 33%. So we do impact positively in relation to people reoffending. It's the same people that reoffend. So most people that come through unpaid work don't come back, but there are a small number that do. So we seek to support them. We also recognised that they are the people who have multiple complexities. So the people who have probably got significant trauma in their life story, probably have been care experienced, are probably got mental health challenges and alcohol and drug challenges. They struggle with recovery. So that's why the justice team are really leading on the trauma-informed, trauma-responsive social work practice and seeing that person first and seeking to support them to deal with the issues that they haven't resolved, because it's by dealing with those that they can then start to recover. And that's not just recover from trauma, but recover from their behaviours that have been really problematic for society and led them to the attention of the police. And we're seeing some really positive impacts around that. I got sent an email about a few months ago from a woman who was just glowing about the impact that the person she was working with and the impact that that had on her, and that it was the first time she was seen as a person, not a conviction. And she had moved away from her drug use. It was really positive. So we know that this approach will be incredibly positive. It made my day, but it made my day and made me sad in equal measures, if that makes sense. So yeah, so those are real challenges in terms of that small group of individuals, and why we're taking that approach in justice. But I can get you a bit more detail on that. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Craig, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, just in relation to the smart hub point at the start as well. So whilst we continue to work really hard in terms of that, the ability of technology to do the research and understand what's out there, and then obviously convince people it's the right thing to do and to use it to support them to look after themselves differently and better at home, and we'll continue to do that. It's interesting, yesterday was an event David McDowell and I were both at yesterday in relation to the 5G innovation region stuff and some of the progress that's getting made in there, which is fabulous. But the next stage in there, some of the stuff I want to take forward as a workshop planned within the next couple of weeks is around about how we take some of that technology and start to apply it into health and social care as well. So Janine, who runs the work down at the Smart Hub as well, she's involved in sort of scoping some of that work so we can shape it around about what we want out of it. So colleagues across the 3 years, so we're doing that. And this isn't just about councils, this is working right across the sector, so understanding what can this new technology and new infrastructure that's coming, that's really, really quick at us in terms of 5G, 6G and beyond, how can we start to use that and really deploy it into supporting health and social care as well. So there's some really exciting opportunities coming, not just about these devices that are really good just now, but actually how can we fundamentally change the way we deliver services going forward as well. So some really good stuff coming that hopefully we'll start to see over the coming months, and certainly as that does evolve, we'll start to bring stuff back to elected members as well, so there is a broader understanding of what's in the art of the possible, but it's certainly an exciting space just now.
Thanks, Jan. You made the point about 5G because a lot of stuff is dependent on 5G for availability.
Oh, brilliant, thank you. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you, Marion, again for a really good report and a really detailed report. I think I'm going to start, it's mainly comments, and it's around about paragraph 18 in that blue box. I think it should be flashing red on our digital papers because that's what's coming down the road, and I don't think it's something we can hide away from. It's stark. We know what's coming, we know the implications potentially what that could mean for our staff and the workforce going forward with what's in that box. We know all the pressures that's there. We know, and according to Donald McCaskill, we need at least another £2 billion investment to start a level playing field in our care at home, only in our care at home. We know the massive challenges. If I can go back and talk about delayed discharges, pre-COVID we had 11 years. We know delayed discharges in East Ayrshire. We didn't become a bad council now that we start. We do have delayed charges. This comes into the funding and how we manage that funding and the staff and the way we want that. There's other implications go along with that in the delayed discharging. We know that we don't have enough of the correct housing that's going to accommodate our people with the complexities that's the living longer. We know also that that investment of £1 in housing is going to save us for in health and social care, but where do we start that? Where do we start that so these savings start coming in? So there's wider issues there, and I thought it was really important to highlight going forward and what's coming over the next year. You said the challenges remain consistent, they remain serious and consistent. For me, But what I'm going to pick up on, and this is good stuff for me, is round about we're caring staff. Jane spoke about them. We're young carers, we're kinship carers. It's been said before, and I'll coin that phrase again. No heroes wear capes. They're fantastic, the work they do. We really, really do appreciate that, and I kind of put the emphasis on that. Thanks to this council on what they really do and how they serve for public bathing, grandparents, young kids, and how they do that. We know the savings that they make us as a health and social care partnership because we don't have that care at home going in to deliver that. Digital care and artificial intelligence that comes on stream will be fantastic. We've already saw that at the Smart Hub, but what artificial intelligence can it do? It's hold somebody's hand when they get into the house. They kind of plate up that dinner for them, and that 15 minutes that they're in there is vital, and it's important that we manage to sustain that. It's somebody's day that we're making when our care at home staff get in there and see them. I'm going to pay tribute again to the care home staff and our support accommodation staff for the marvellous and fantastic work that they get, and we're older people out there accommodation to various events all the way out through East Ayrshire. It's another testament to the way our carers, and I mean carers, treat our older people. I think some of the highlights again with the children at risk that you started way in there, again, the care experience people has been fantastic, and that the highlights of this report for me is that type of stuff. But again, I still say that blue box in 18 should have been a red flashing box for us, because we cannot hide away, and the public need to be aware of what's coming down the road with us and the implications for that expectation against that demand and what we're going to currently meet.
Thank you. Marion?
Yeah, thank you, and I particularly thank you for paying such a heartfelt tribute to our carers. I don't think you can minimise the importance of the human touch that they bring. So really appreciate that. And I'm not going to say too much about the blue blocks that should be read, other than the report is hopefully balanced with some of those positives, but with the kind of salutary messages that we need to pay attention to in anticipating what the future brings. Thanks.
Craig?
Just on the specific point of delayed discharges, without wanting to get into too much detail around about it, but it's maybe just helpful, I suppose, to point out that we have always had delayed discharges. Delayed discharges isn't a new thing. We split delayed discharges down into different sort of component parts. The bit that we've always done really, really well, we still do well in, is a bit round about this, what's classed as a standard delay. So somebody who needs to leave hospital, they've not got any very specialised needs, but they might need a care package. And there's a 14-day target, it's the wrong word to use, but there's a 14-day national target round about that. And we routinely and continue still to report as zero delays that go beyond that 14 days. So that's a bit we've always done well on, and we can continue still to do well there. I think it's just a matter of time before we start to see that tripping over and breaching as well, just in terms of the overall performance we're seeing everywhere. The other bit where we are seeing an increasing number of delayed discharges, and that this has been a real concern for us, is in relation to the complexity level of delays. So for us, that's particularly around about adults with incapacity. It goes back to one of those earlier points we made around about power of attorney, making sure that people have got power of attorney in place, so when they do, should they find themselves in hospital, we've got the right legal powers in place to be able to move on quickly. If they don't have that, they have to go through a financial guardianship process, a guardianship process. That can take sometimes 4 or 5 months, but that person has to remain in hospital until the legal powers are resolved round about it. That's where we're really struggling just now. I was just checking the data. As of yesterday, within Cross House Hospital, we had nobody waiting for a package of care to be discharged. Everybody needed it, had one in place, and they were away. But we did have 19 delayed discharges in Cross House Hospital. 2/3 of them were related to people with adults with incapacity who didn't have the legal powers in place, and they're at various stages of that sort of court process. The average delay in there is probably at this point in time, some exceeding it, some less in it, but the average is probably somewhere between 7 and 8 weeks for all those individuals that are sitting in there waiting to go home. So there's a very specific challenge that faces just now around about delayed discharges that we're having to try and deal with. And as you look across Scotland, we seem to be a bit of an outlier in relation to adults with incapacity, so there's a lot of work going on to try and understand why that might be and what we can do to address it. But the other part of it, in terms of the packages of care and getting people out as quickly as we can, that continues to be an absolute focus for us. And that lot of that goes back to the good points that Mary's made around about the care of our staff and what we can do and do as quickly as we possibly can to get people home and keep them at home. Thanks, Provost.
Thanks, Craig. Eddie?
Thanks. One of the things I continue to do in terms of health and care is take the portfolio for the whole of the 32 councils for solace. And, you know, one of the things that frustrates me, and I know it frustrates colleagues as well, is we keep talking about the people who are stuck in the transfer out of hospital. And there's about 1,900 people across Scotland who are stuck in transfer out of hospital. Across Scotland, there's about 7,000 people waiting for a social care assessment in the community. And there's over 3,000 people who have had that social care assessment, but there's no capacity to actually deliver, you know, the supports that they need. So the people who are stuck in hospital are all 1,900 people with individual rights, and we clearly need to focus on them. But we also need to think about the people who have not had their assessment yet, who are sitting in the community, and the folk who have had an assessment who don't get it. And actually to look at the balance of measures, we need to look at all these things, because actually we do incredibly well in terms of not having people wait for assessments. Again, we're one of the very best, you know, at that in terms of the number of people waiting. They're always a small number, so if you get in the number of ferals that you see every week, then it takes you a week or two to actually do them. But there are other people who will wait years to actually get an assessment. So the figure around delayed hospital discharge, it's important in terms of the individuals, but I think sometimes our importance has to be balanced in saying what we're doing for people in the community to make sure they get their assessment, you know, timely, and make sure they don't need to get into hospital as well. So all three figures are really important.
Yep, no.
Just for completeness, so we do a return on a weekly basis back to the government that's called assessment and unmet needs. So the bit that Eddie's referring to in terms of people needing assessment and then once they're assessed needing care, broken down by in hospital and in the community. So as of yesterday when we made the latest return, we had 41 people in the community who'd been assessed and waiting for a package of care. So broadly the same number, so about 40 in the hospital, across all the hospital sites, and about 40 in the community, which is a high number for us, but it's not a high number when you see it across Scotland. Some areas in Scotland have got thousands of people, literally thousands of people who have been assessed in the community and needing a package of care and not getting anything at all. So we've got 40, and typically, as Eddie says, that will be people that are assessed this week. It takes a few days for that assessment to conclude and get the package identified and put in place. So there's just a kind of turnover in there. So 40 for us is higher than it's been. It typically sat around about 20, but it's still a really, really low number, and it allows us to put those packages in place really quickly for them as well.
Oh, thanks very much. That's really important. Is that all okay? Okay, thank you. Councillor Peter Mabin.
Thank you, Provost. Thank you, Marion, for the report. I was reading with interest on page 74 about the continuous professional learning, and so you continue to train our social workers and our carers as they do their job. And I very much like that you're doing the development course on anti-racist practice and wider equalities, because of course we're going to have people here from other countries who perhaps came here on student visas and then they've decided to stay here because they like it in Scotland and they want to transition into work visas. I expect we are a sponsored employer for some of them. So it's very important that we've got a positive story there about people coming from other countries. They are contributing, they are skilled, they are working and paying tax, instead of some of the negative stuff that's out there about people coming from other countries. So the best of luck to you as you continue with that training, and the anti-racist practice is very important. It's not just enough to say, I'm not a racist or we're not a racist. We have to be actively anti-racist. Thank you.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you. Councillor Linda Mabin.
Thanks, Provost. Just on the back of what Councillor Peter Mabin was saying there, the chronologies, you know, I had the background in a previous life, and I spent probably 6-7 years with social workers for all 3 local Ayrshire authorities, trying to put the emphasis across with how important chronologies were on the systems they used to the well-being of the kids. And I'm absolutely delighted to see that the one-day courses are in, and I'm assuming, because obviously I'm not there anymore, I'm assuming that having that training is making a difference to the sort of information that's getting fed in.
Thanks for that, and I appreciate you have the inside line on this one. Chronologies is a challenge for I think, all agencies, and it's a challenge nationally. So there has been an approach adopted nationally in support around that through guidance from the care inspector in terms of our regulator, but also IRIS in terms of their research. So we're taking a whole service approach around supporting people understand the importance of chronologies and using liquid logic system in order for those chronology items, so those items that have been identified as significant events for an individual, to push them through, particularly for children across the Ayrshire, for adults to put them on liquid logic. So that's an area of focus and development, as you can see through the training, but also 7-minute briefs and updating our guidance in relation to that. We'll know, I'm trying to think, when we do a multi-agency file audit on an annual basis, so we'll know when we do the next multi-agency file audit whether we've seen improvement or not, but we're hopeful. Thanks.
Thank you. Everybody else okay? We're happy to note Marion's report. Thanks, Marion. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5. This is the review of the Council's anti-fraud strategy, and I'll bring in Joe McLaughlin to speak to the report. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Provost. And members, this report seeks your approval for our revised counter-fraud and corruption strategy. It builds on the work that you approved in June last year when you approved our new financial regulations. And as part of that, we gave a commitment that we would review our accounting policy bulletins. We renamed them financial policy bulletins. And one of those bulletins related to our anti-fraud strategy, APB1, and it's that strategy that's before you today, albeit enhanced and emboldened. That original strategy had been in place for a number of years, and what we did was to enhance that and also clarify the well-established frameworks, procedures and controls that you know are in place and across this council, all in place to counter fraud and corruption wherever we can. The proposal today is that this strategy no longer sits as a financial policy bulletin, but becomes a standalone policy document. It's renamed the Counter Fraud and Corruption Strategy, and it takes account of that proactive approach you hear from David, from Ailey and from myself throughout the year. And it's brought before you today, as I said, for approval. It builds on the stand of protecting the public purse, following the public pound, as Ailey would say, and at that time the responsibilities that flow onto you and to officers across the council. It recognises that as a council we do have robust procedures in place to counter and prevent and detect fraud and corruption. And at the same time, we recognise that as an organisation, and as you have read in the press this year, public sector is not immune to perpetrations of fraud, and so this policy document, becoming a standalone document, will build on preventative measures. And because of that, that proposal going forward at paragraph 15 just notes the work we'll do. We'll place this on the intranet and on the internet. It will sit alongside the financial regulations. It will be broadcast and drilled down into staff groups. And at the same time, we recognise it's a fast-moving picture, and so if approved today, we have an undertaking to implement it immediately, but at the same time to review at least once every 2 years and bring another updated report and strategy before you. That, Provost, is essentially that in a nutshell. The strategy is attached to Appendix 1 and recommendations at paragraph 2 seeking approval for the strategy today.
Thank you very much, Joe. Councillor Linton.
Thank you very much, Provost, and thank you, Joe. I don't think we can ever not take this seriously enough. I think what Joe's bringing before us today strengthens our already strong position, and I welcome today's report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Linda Maven.
Thanks, Provost. Just to reiterate what Councillor Linton said, I'm particularly pleased to see that it's been made available on the website and the intranet as a standalone policy. I think that's absolutely the right thing to do. But just one wee comment, I'm also pleased to see that the minimum once every 2 year review, because it doesn't matter how smart we are, fraudsters will always try and be one step ahead. So I welcome that as well, and the report. Thanks, Joe.
Brilliant, thank you. Anybody else? Yep, Deputy Leader.
Thanks, Joe, for the paper. I just digress. I don't know whether you saw me picking up my phone there. I never asked Google today or anything, but it told me everything about corruption and whistleblowing and governance round about that. We took part in an Operation Fort seminar yesterday, and we were advised when we were having conversations to switch these off in Alexa. They are it's listening, because everything you said there has just come up on my phone. I never asked. So just to be aware, it's there. That's Google is listening. So round about corruption and anti-fraud. Just be careful with phones.
Through you, yeah, being the Director of Finance and Digital is both an honour and a frightening experience, because the digital part is the part that makes me lie awake in terms of the risks inherent within it. You're absolutely right. It's a scary process, but at the same time, as other colleagues have mentioned today, it's a process to some extent we have to adopt in order to move forward. But controls in place as always.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson.
Councillor McMahon's actually by one of the button. In large financial companies such as Aviva, which I have personal knowledge of, your mobile phones are not allowed on the trading floor.
Wow, I'm just thinking of me and my bestie having our film nights. Better leave our phones outside the room. I think anybody wants to hear the rubbish we talk anyway. Right, is council happy to agree this report? It's the right thing to do, so thank you very much, Joe. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the final item, members. It's the changes to membership in various committees. I'm not intending to go through them. They're right there in front of you. Are there any questions? Are we happy to agree? All good. Right, thank you so much, everyone. Members, that concludes the business of council. I'll draw the meeting to a close and the recording will now finish. Thank you, everybody.